Hey, everybody, welcome to Fireside 42, new podcast. We're talking to the Volkswagen bargaining team, your bargaining team that you elected, or rather, they're talking to you through these conversations that we're having with me, Rob Walden. I'm your host. This is about seniority, promotions a little bit. Let's see, we talked to Josh Epperson, co-chair. We talked with Brooke Benoit and Jimmy Key, both members of the subcommittee for seniority and promotions. And as always, we have Tony Bodavis with us. He's kind of our producer sound guy. So it's a really good conversation. It was one of our first episodes that we recorded, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So here you go. So let's talk about seniority. Let's. I'm a skeptic. Okay, I've had multiple conversations with Josh about this. And I'll tell you from where I come from, like I don't like the idea that just because somebody's been here for 30 years, that they're more qualified for, say, promotion than I am. First of all, if they've been here for 30 years and they haven't already been promoted, they're probably not as good as an employee as they think they are, right? And if you got somebody who's comfortable and he's just been around a while, right, doesn't try very hard, but then you got this other kid. You know, he might have a young family. He might be an up-and-comer. He's busting his balls to get promoted, and you're telling him he's got to wait in line for 30 years until this guy gets promoted, right? Is that what you guys come up with, or is there? Tell me how promotion works now.
It's one of the mechanisms they use to decide who gets a job. It's not the deciding factor. If you're not qualified for the job, you're not qualified. That's just the way it is. But for the first time, it actually is part of the process.
Always has been, unfortunately, in some cases. But like Jimmy said, there's other qualifications too. Like, are you on your first discipline level? You know, how is your attendance record? Things like that. But at the end of the day, the seniority will determine who's is higher. That's how you'll be moved up.
But assuming all things are equal, right? So as I understand it, if me and Josh over here are going for the same job, right? I'm definitely prettier than he is, right? But other than that, let's say we're the same quality of work, right? We're just as equally competent, right? We both are hard workers, so we show up when we're supposed to, right? Neither one of us has been in trouble, but he's been around longer than I am. He's going to get the job.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, he will.
So let's say, on the other hand, that he's kind of a tool and he doesn't like to come to work very often, so he's got some attendance problems, but everything else remains the same. Is he going to get that job just because he's got 5 years on me, or am I going to get that job because I come to work on a regular basis?
He's going to get the job.
He is?
Yeah.
Even though...
Unless he's on a level 1 disciplinary, he'll get the job.
But I mean, if he's not coming to work, he's probably going to have some points on it,
if he's got points and he's at a level 1, you'll get it.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
if he's got points because he's not coming to work, and I missed no work... Then it goes to me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that goes for any disciplinary action.
Key to that is seniority is the deciding factor if all things are equal. If you're in a disciplinary process, all things are not equal.
Exactly.
Yeah, like everyone should be entirely equal. The only thing that should separate auto workers is how long they've been on the job. That should be it. And the idea behind seniority language in general is, you're trying to take someone else's opinion of you, a personal viewpoint or a bias, out of the equation. You want to be judged on just the merits, and if all the merits are there and you've got 3 qualified people, well, how do you break that tie? You need to go with the person who's been there the longest, because you coming in every day, you working this job for this period of time, that's what it should earn you something. It should mean something if you've put in that much time and dedication to the place. It shouldn't come down to, my supervisor doesn't like me.
And touching on that, to this day, there's been no reward for longevity. Most of the time, you don't make it at a job when you're not doing what you're supposed to do. So, like I said earlier, if I've been here 15 years, that means I did something right. And can't get rewarded for it. There's no reward. We all make the same amount of money. We all get the same PTO. Maybe I should have a chance at a promotion. And here, it hasn't worked.
So let me ask you this, and it means that we're just talking. I'm going to throw this out here, and I don't know if it's something you guys discussed so when we talk about longevity or seniority, we're talking clock number. Have you guys
actually hire date, not
hire
clock
date?
number.
It's your hire date.
Isn't that the same
thing? Is what determines your clock number.
But I mean, if you got 2 guys that hired on the same day, but I hired on at 11, another guy hired on at 3 o'clock, but we're hired on at the exact same day. Which one of us has seniority?
You're going to use your last 4 of your social security number to break it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's random. Okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't change my question.
Most places do it, but
But if you have somebody who, and again, it comes back to, we all know people that don't like to come to work, right? So we have people that I know personally that have technically been employed by, I worked with a guy for a time. He's not with the company anymore, but and his was FMLA. And I don't want to be bagging on people that have FMLA because they've got concerns that are none of my damn business.
right.
But the fact of the matter is, he would come in for a week, approximately once a year, to maintain his job, and he would be gone again. He had years in seniority on me, but every time he came to work, I got stuck training him because he didn't stay on the work long enough to know his job. So my question is, would it be better to count seniority by time hours worked as opposed to my hire date? Isn't that more fair? If I've worked, twice as many hours in a year as, I'm going to pick on Josh the whole damn time. If I've worked twice as many hours as Josh in a year, shouldn't I have more seniority than him, even if he's got, he got hired in 2 years before me? Does that?
I understand because I've seen cases like that in my own area. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Should it? Probably. In a lot of cases, should it be like case by case, especially when people are out? Because we had somebody that got injured in our area. She's been out for almost 4 years, but she's still on the paperwork,
Right.
and she still has time over other people.
Right, and it's not that it's not that I have anything against people that
No,
were hurt or on
no.
FMLA, but
still, I'm still here.
right.
I'm
I'm
still
doing
coming
it-
to work
yeah,
every day.
exactly.
I understand.
So is this something that we can negotiate down the road? It seems like this is off the table for now, but
So it's one of the difficult things because, like we had someone ask about the taxes for their bonus. What we can bargain is really limited to a Volkswagen policy. And something like FMLA specifically, that's a federal legal situation. And so, you affect that by voting in November. It's not something we can negotiate with the company on because people have a legal right to utilize FMLA for all kinds of various reasons. And that's always subject to doctor approval. So like in this case, that's definitely not something we're able to touch in the course of bargaining because it's not a Volkswagen policy.
you wouldn't be you wouldn't be touching it. You wouldn't even have to bring it up in conversation. All we're saying is seniority comes from amount of hours worked, not date of hire. That would be the change.
It could still be discriminatory, though, because they have a legit reason why they're off, I hope.
Well,
You know
yeah,
what
I mean, I'm not saying that you would fire them, but I mean, if why would you give
It'd be like I'm taking away seniority because you're using your PTO hours.
Yeah.
You're
Like,
not,
that's
you're
not
you're
right,
You're not taking away seniority. I mean, theoretically, I suppose you could make that argument, but I mean, on the average, we're all going to take the same amount of PTO, right? On the average,
Right.
right? But you have people that don't come to work. And FMLA might be the
you
worst
can't do
example. But
that.
if you've got a guy like the guy I knew, right, that I was constantly having to train once a year, right, because he wasn't at work, he shouldn't get the team lead job over me because he doesn't know how to do the job that I'm teaching him to do.
Yeah, it's frustrating as hell, absolutely.
Like Josh said, though, it's federally mandated. We can't disadvantage someone because they're using it. We can't ask questions why they're using it or how often they use it. There's guidelines we have to go by, same as the company as well.
But I would point out too, these are outlier type situations, and we need to kind of be careful how we handle this sort of thing.
It's the minority, though. They are definitely in the minority.
Well, and I absolutely don't want to punish anybody. Tony, go ahead.
So I was on the subcommittee, and part of that was team leader roles and responsibilities, as well as promotion, demotion, and self-demotion. So right now, people are held to different standards put in place by the company. And so a lot of that is going to change over the course of, we don't know, 1, 2, 3 years. Once the contract is in place, we have roles and responsibilities specifically for team leaders, what they're going to be, responsible for, the work they can and can't do. You can't do work that supervisors do, stuff like that. So it's going to be a culture change when you look at it that way. And they're going to be held to certain expectations as well. So I think that's going to address a lot of issues that right now you may see with seniority, where people have been put in these positions because of the buddy system and stuff like that, and they're not really made, to be in certain leadership positions. And some are really good, and some struggle. And for the people that struggle, we'll have training in place. When we have the agreement in place, we'll have a certain amount of months where we review everybody. Where are you currently at? What are you struggling with? Where do you need help with? Because you don't want to kind of put them in a position there, they're going to be demoted. You can't do stuff like that. It has to be fair. So a lot of that will be addressed just by having a contract in place. And it's something to think about, because currently, we'll just do it a totally different way.
We got it. Our system is sick, and
No
we're going
checks
to
and balances at all.
That conversation is what reminded me of my point that I forgot, was like, if we're talking about, systems that we depend on now that aren't working correctly, that's one of the things we're trying to do, like with the discipline process and the attendance policy and things like that, is like, if you have people that are consistently creating issues in their areas, like, why are they not being taken care of? Why is that not being addressed? And we know we've got people on the floor that are carrying around, 20, 30 points because the company doesn't want to fire this person because they're too short of manpower or whatever the reason is. And we recognize that's not right. And so if you have somebody that's consistently, having these kinds of problems and stuff, it's like, number one, do they have an issue they need help with? And then number two, it's like, if you can't cut the mustard, if you keep sending A ranks, or if you just call out for the fun of it, it's like there are going to be repercussions for that. Those repercussions are supposed to exist right now, but they're unfairly applied. And that's one of the things we're going to see change. And we really hope that's what's able to kind of revitalize our institutions to make them work properly and, protect people fairly.
Right,
Okay.
because as of now, they just move people around instead of addressing issues. Just move, shop. Never fix anything that way. The people are still struggling no matter where they get moved to. They need more training, whatever the case. They just move them again.
get rid of the problem, shall just make it somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jimmy, you got something? Or are you just getting comfortable? Let's talk about some of the language you guys have won. Tell me about shop-to-shop transfer.
Okay. So as of now, well, when we ratify our contract, we've never been able to transfer shop to shop. The only time you got moved was on a disciplinary action. So now you'll be able to transfer shop to shop and put in your shift preference 3 times a year. So you can change your shift, you can change your shop in general. We've never been able to do that before.
So if I'm working from assembly, I can put in to go to body
Yes. Yes.
without being in trouble.
Without being in trouble. Yes.
What about if I'm in body shop? Let's say I'm working on the ID4, HOP, and I want to go to framer.
You can do that. You can put in for a transfer
Okay.
to framer. You could put in a transfer to paint shop. You could put in a transfer to finish. Wherever you want to go, you could put it in.
In the past, if you're in assembly, you didn't know there was openings in body shop or
No.
paint. Now there'll be a process where you'll know what's opening, if you're qualified for it, when to put in for it, and when it comes down. You'll be notified if you get it.
Job posting and bidding.
So it's wide open. If you're there, if you want it, there's opportunity that you didn't have before.
Yeah.
And again, we're going to give the senior guys first crack, and then we're just going to go down the list. Is that
Yep.
right?
Yep.
What about Aerotech? What did you guys do for them?
So years ago, they lost a group of Aerotech people. And when they got converted, their time did not come with them. Their date of hire started when they got converted to Volkswagen. Now the company agreed to do a one-time combination of their temp service time and their company time. So they'll be counting for all the years they did with Aerotech or months or Onan, whichever company they were with. That time's going to count towards their time served with Volkswagen, period.
Towards seniority.
Yes, towards their seniority.
Yeah, I was really excited about that because, I did 2 years as Aerotech when I came in 2012.
It shows.
And yeah, I know.
we could tell.
Right. It's the miles, not the age. But it was crazy. We called ourselves Forever Techs because most of us came in being told, you'll be hired in 6 months. And here you are a year and a half later, 2 years later, and was absolutely horrendous that they forgot about 24 people for
Yes.
3 years. They didn't think they had any temporary people. So it's a tremendous thing for my hire date to now be in the year 2012 when I actually started earning Volkswagen dollars, and not 2014 when I actually converted. And that's one of the reasons, the 1050 number is misleading. My employee ID number is, based on the time I converted straight to Volkswagen, but, because it wasn't set up for 2 years before that, that's why the hire date's more important than clock number.
During that same time, there's people getting converted in 6 months.
Yep.
That pass people like Josh up on seniority.
We
So
also
this is-
got direct hires at
Right.
that time when there was
Right.
Onan and Aerotech still in the building. Aerotech was dwindling out. We had Onan. We were getting direct hires with temps in the building.
I'm one of those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, if you put in your time, it should show. Just the same way with the seniority conversation. Like, if you were here building cars that Volkswagen sold for money, whether it was 1 year, 2 years, a month, 2 months, whatever, it's like that should count towards your total time on the job. It absolutely should. Just because you were getting paid 3/4 of what a Volkswagen person earned, that didn't mean you built 3/4 of a car or only did 3/4 of a pitch.
Right.
It should matter. And that's the whole point with seniority,
That's why I feel like our group is awesome in those aspects. We got somebody that's been here 15 years. We got somebody that's been here for less than 2, but we have the people in the middle as well, 5, 10,
You're talking about the bargaining team.
Yes. You're getting it from all sides.
Well, that's good. I was having a conversation with Josh and Caleb the other day, and they kind of said the same thing. Is that you guys have done a really good job of, or not you guys didn't elect yourselves, but the shop did a really good job of diversifying the group.
They really did. Really did.
Tell me about team lead promotions. I mean, how is it going to be more fair?
Okay, so the way it currently is
Right.
that you have, right.
It's terrible.
All you have to do is test online.
Yeah, fishing.
You don't really get to talk
I've heard
to
about
anybody.
the fishing test. Yeah.
Anybody can take it for you.
You have to be besties with your supervisor, stuff like that sometimes. And sometimes you just have to be really good. So it's a little bit of everything, is a little bit all over the place. With the contract, the test is not the first thing that gets you in for an interview. The first thing that gets you in an interview is your seniority. Mm-hmm. And then there is a disciplinary action that they look at a level. And then beyond that, you just, there might be a certain amount of people applying for the position. And then the management can look at the list of people, and they have to go by seniority. So the highest seniority goes first, and they go in, they have to have an interview. And the interview gets reviewed by a union representative afterwards, just to make sure that the whole process was fair. There could or could not be a test included. It could be the same test that you have to do before to get in the pool. It's still part of it.
Still got to know how to fish to get promoted. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily say it has to be the same kind of test, but there's going to be some type of a test to kind of make sure that the person that's applying for that particular position is qualified. You have to make sure that they can do the roles and responsibilities, so that all gets reviewed, and it's just like an actual interview. So it's just important to have that. It's a good, a good shot for the person that's looking for a position like that, for to be able to get in the room with somebody to talk about it. Not everybody's good at taking tests, and some people maybe aren't good at doing an interview, but the supervisor and the assistant manager, they know who they have, in front of them. And so that's it's a really big change. And it actually took quite a lot of work to convince the company to take the test out of the process as a selection tool, but to go with the interview instead and seniority. So that was a really big win. And in addition to that, just the whole process after that is trying to set up the new team leader up for success. So that involves training, very specific roles and responsibilities, just to have the knowledge of those things that you need to know to become a good team leader. And so I feel like that's a big change. And there's a lot more to talk about, and you might have some questions.
So is the pool going to go away? I
don't know how you would call that.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking, and I might be misunderstanding how it works then, but as I understand it now, there is a team lead selection pool, right?
Yes.
And if if I was put in that pool before, again, we go back to Josh. He's got seniority. I mean, 5 years. It's actually probably longer than I'm just picking on him. But if I've been in the pool longer and he just entered the pool, I would still get picked first because I've been in the pool longer.
Yes.
Is that going to stay the same, or is that going to go away?
You'll still have your seniority, so it'll go by seniority instead.
But in this case, he would get picked before me, even though I'd been in the pool longer. Is what I'm saying. That's how the pool works now, as I understand it. Or no?
Now you go by seniority,
It'll be
so
seniority.
you might have 10 people apply for that position.
Each time a
And-
job opening comes up, people will apply, and that will be your pool of the people that interview.
Yes.
By seniority.
They won't just sit
There
there.
won't be a sitting pool. like
So it'll be
we
a
have
whole
now.
new pool every single time.
Yes.
Okay. Because
Right.
I
Just
got
like-
guys that are still talking about how I'm still in the pool. I'm still in the
Right.
pool. I'm still in the pool.
It's
Which
just
is-
like any other application, but I think a lot of people see ghosts with that too, because if you've got somebody who's been there for 10 or 15 years and they're not a team leader at that point, it's probably because they didn't want to be. And so it may not really be that big a concern.
Okay. And there's going to be a decert process. You've trained your team lead. You've given him ample opportunity to learn his job, and he sucks. She
Dun,
sucks.
dun,
They
dun.
suck.
Yes, they suck. So what you want to do is give them, as much training as you can give them,
Right.
and you manage that and you monitor that. And then you have to have honest conversations with your team leader. So
Honest conversation. I mean, I'm assuming that's
As far
not a
as
team member to
performance.
team leader. So is that coming from the supervisor down to team leader, or is that coming from, say, shop steward to team leader? Where is that conversation coming from?
So it should be coming from the supervisor. They manage the line. They manage the people that work with them. So it should come from them. Then, of course, whatever the situation is that arises out of that, you still have oversight of a union representative to make sure that process is followed.
Okay. So, but as I also understand, let me make sure I get this right. If I'm going to use a terrible word here. Let's say that everybody on my line hates their team lead and they revolt. We all sign a "you suck" letter. Can we do that?
Yes. You can sign a "you suck" letter.
We're not going to call it that. That's
We have overwhelming majority of 75% of the line.
super majority.
Yes, a super majority that has to, make their concerns known, and that has to be reviewed.
And that triggers a review by the supervisor, correct?
Correct. And of course, oversight by union representative.
Okay. So are we free to? Let's say I got an issue with my team leader, Josh, and so I come to you, Tony. I'm like, Tony, I got this letter. I want you to sign this letter. And my supervisor gets a hold of it. Am I going to be punished for starting crap on the line? Or are they going to say, hey, look, you guys are free to do this now. So if you lost faith in you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You're free to do it, but you should have good reasoning to do so. Right? And so that's why it's so important to have a large number. I would say 75% or more of people that, are basically petitioning that. And even then, the team leader still has an opportunity to improve. It doesn't necessarily mean that, hey, we're just going to get rid of you. That still needs to be done in a fair manner, which is why it's so important to have union oversight on that. And, it's totally different from what we have currently.
I think, okay, it's easy to pick on the crappy team leads because we all know crappy team leads, but we also know good team leads. And we also know team leads that could probably be good if they had support. So I think maybe the important thing to pull out of this conversation is that now there's going to be a support system.
That's absolutely correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was something that was lacking before, and you kind of saw it manifest in a lot of different ways. But we're in an awkward spot because we also represent team leaders as much as team members, and there are times people don't want to be told, "Hey, follow standard work" or 5S your area or whatever. But the reality is the team leader kind of has to help carry that message because they kind of help keep everybody on the right track. And they need protection to do that job effectively as much as a team member needs protection against having their standard work changed on them arbitrarily or something like that, So it's a fine line where you want to try to help people out, give them all the best advantages, but also, have a way to deal with or correct negative behavior that doesn't do good for the team.
Sometimes that team leader may need a wake-up call. He might have been a good team leader in the past and just got complacent. And this could serve as, a training tool. you need to do better. It works. It could work out good for everyone.
Does it not concern anybody else that I have more training as a team member than my team leaders do, and I have an entry-level position job? Like, right? I mean, there's no training for team leads.
There will be.
There will be. All right.
And this is all grievable. We've never had a grievance procedure. Now that there's a grievance, there will be a grievance procedure in place. Everything is trackable. We're going to have documentation of anything that isn't right. So that'll help us in the long run as well.
So, okay, documentation, that brings up a good point. So now we're gonna try to hold people accountable in a way that's fair and equitable for everybody, which means, I assume it means a paper trail, so that something happens, supervisor says to the team lead or the team member, whoever, you did this, we're supposed to do it this way, this is verbal counseling, sign here. Is that accurate? I mean, are we going to have something similar to that, so that there's a paper trail, so that down the road you can't get sent to HR and the supervisor's like, well, he's done this 5-6 times and I'm just tired of it. Now he's going to be able to show me the paperwork.
Yeah, there'll be something very similar to that. There'll be a digital footprint and paper. So
yeah, that's actually a coaching, right? Mm-hmm. So that's another example of one of those systems we have right now that's not actually fully utilized correctly. That, if somebody's having an issue, having a difficulty, and they get, have a conversation with the supervisor about it, the supervisor is supposed to document that, what they talked about, when it was, what was discussed. And again, back to the grievance procedure, which is, it's going to be, you're going to hear this a lot because it kind of runs into all directions. But, you're telling me I screwed this up and you talked to me about it. It's like, well, where's the proof?
Right.
Like, that's grievable right there.
Yep.
It's like you need to have evidence for your accusation against me.
And now we'll have the union that has the evidence as well as the company. And if it's not lining up, we got more serious problems than we thought.
And theoretically, anytime you have a conversation with your supervisor that could affect your job, you're going to have a steward in there to bear witness to what was actually said.
If you choose to, and not just to bear witness, like it's an advocacy function. This person is kind of like a defense attorney in a lot of ways. Try to stop you from saying something maybe you shouldn't because you're upset,
right?
And have a conversation before the meeting actually occurs to make sure your rep understands what's going on, and they can kind of help talk you down. Like, hey, hold on, calm down. Like, let's be smart about this.
I got in trouble in the Air Force one time, and I had to go see my first sergeant. And I asked my first sergeant. He said, "Tell me what happened." I said, "You want me to tell you the truth? You want me to tell you the good story I got?" He says, "You tell me the truth, and I'll lie if I have to." Mm-hmm. He was a good first sergeant, so
there will be no lying.
No.
Yeah, I think the coaching plan is a really good tool to have, both for the supervisor as well as for the team member or team leader, as well as for the union representative, because they all review that and they all sign off on that. And there's a clear plan on that also on there as well. Okay, so this issue that we're having, how are we going to fix that? How are you going to give me the opportunity to get better at that? And then you revisit those, and you try to come to a good outcome to where the team leader, team member is now back on track where they need to be.
So we've been talking about team leads mostly, or team leads, but this applies to team members too. So they're going to get the same support.
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you guys a wild card question. How do you feel about elected team leads? I know that's off the table for this contract, but down the road potentially, what do you? I think that if you don't enjoy the respect and admiration of your fellows, you have no business being a team lead anyway. And if you can't win an election, you shouldn't be a team lead. Is that something?
I think it's a really interesting idea, but something we need to be careful of with that is that
people always say that right before they shut you down and call you an idiot. That's a very interesting idea, you idiot.
No, I like it, but you didn't like it when your mom told you to eat your broccoli, right?
Right.
It's like sometimes the right thing is not the popular thing. Sometimes it's not the thing that gets you support. And, a concern I would have is like, is somebody going to actually help me out just to get my vote and then do nothing once they're in office? Kind of like so many people we see in politics right now, so that's a concern there. It's a double-edged sword. But I agree, respect from your peers is important, but respect can also be earned. It doesn't just have to be, decided on at that moment when they're voting for someone.
Okay. What do you think?
I don't think it's a horrible idea. I agree with Josh, and it could get messy. I don't think it's a horrible idea at all.
All right, Jimmy, you got to agree with me. What do you think? Somebody's got to agree with me.
I agree with the part where if you can't win an election, you're probably not going to be very effective. But at the same time, just because you're popular don't mean you're going to be good at the job. So
I can get on board with that. Okay. Well, let's see. We're running pretty close to our time. Is there anything regarding this particular topic that we haven't talked about that you want people to know? Like, this is your opportunity to speak to your fellows. Is there a parting message you'd like to leave them with?
It's very broad and past just seniority. You know, you hear a lot about these different words thrown around, these different, work rules or whatever that we don't have now and we will have after ratification. But I think it's really important everybody remember that, for all these what ifs and if thens and all that, the name of the game, the whole point is to look after people on the floor doing the work, to make sure people aren't put in positions that allow them to fail. That if you have your chance and you call out all the time and rack up a bunch of points and work yourself out the door, it's like that's on you. But if you're put into a position and that you're allowed to fail because of lack of support or lack of training or lack of resources, that's unacceptable, and that's what we're here to stop. And fairness and equality are what we're talking about here, and seniority is one of those tools to help make things fair, not to let people take advantage of other people.
I think on this committee, seniority won't be the be-all and end-all, but we did our best to make sure it's respected more than it has been in the past.
Okay. Brooke, you got anything? They
I'll be back.
Yeah, you will.
I'll be back.
You will. Okay. Well, all right. Well, that's going to do it for today. Brooke, thank you. Jimmy,
Thank you.
appreciate you coming on. Josh, thank you. We'll talk to everybody next time. Thanks for listening to Fireside 42. And just as a closing note on that, next time somebody goes out on FMLA and you got a work burden put on you, remember it's not their fault and it's not your fault. It's the company's fault because they haven't properly supported us. Yes. And that's where the problem is. And that's what the union is going to help to address.
I think education is very key when it comes to that stuff. So we're not educated on it. Some people are. And maybe in some cases, the company's staff isn't properly educated on it either. And that's when it becomes an issue.
Right. Okay. Well, that's this week's episode. I'm really glad that you guys tuned in and gave us a listen. I hope you'll come back next week when we talk with Angel Gomez about steward representation, committeemen, and that kind of thing. And then as we go forward, we're going to have bonus episodes, special episodes. I know that Chuck Browning wants to sit down with me and have a conversation about a few things that have been going down. So please keep an eye out for that. We'll let you know when that pops up. But I ran out of things to say.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for listening. This has been Fireside 42 with Rob Wong, and Tony Davis is here helping me out. And we'll see you next time.
See you on the next one.
Adios.
Ciao. Doei doei dag. Auf Wiedersehen.